Welcome to IPL Deep Dive, the podcast that brings you expert analysis, thrilling match highlights, and all the drama of IPL 2025. Whether you're a diehard fan or just catching the cricket fever, we've got you covered with in-depth insights and engaging discussions. Get ready to explore the heart of the action with your hosts, Mike and Michelle, as they dive into today's match analysis. It's time to step onto the pitch and join the conversation.
All right, so we're diving into some T20 cricket today, and specifically a match between the Mumbai Indians and those Kolkata Knight Riders.
Sounds good.
Now, you sent over some YouTube transcripts, one from CricBuzz and one from ESPN Cricinfo, right? And basically, the aim here is to kind of pick apart this Mumbai victory.
Yeah.
Really understand how they managed such a decisive win. I think we should try and give our listeners the main takeaways, without them having to watch the whole match or, hours of post-game analysis.
Absolutely. So straight off the bat, both CricBuzz and ESPN Cricinfo really highlight just how dominant this Mumbai win was.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even close.
Exactly. Not close at all. Mumbai just outplayed KKR at every stage.
Yeah.
The toss was obviously crucial, and Mumbai choosing to bowl first really put the pressure on Kolkata right away.
And it showed, right, I mean, restricting them to what, 116?
Yep, 116, and then chasing that down. It was pretty comfortable for Mumbai, finished with overs to spare.
Yeah, I was going to say they made it look easy, which, must felt pretty good for Mumbai, considering this was actually their first win of the season.
Yeah, big relief for them, I'd imagine. CricBuzz even used the phrase off the mark, emphasizing just how important that first win is, especially after a couple of losses to start the season.
Yeah. Losing those first few games can really mess with the team's momentum.
Yeah.
So it's got to be a huge confidence boost for them to get a solid win under their belt.
Exactly. It can really turn things around. It stops that negative spiral and gives them something to build on.
I think for those of us who might not follow the T20 League super closely, this is actually a really interesting point about how those early wins or losses can really impact a team's trajectory. It's almost psychological, right?
Definitely, yeah. Team's mentality is such a big part of sport. And, especially in a fast-paced tournament like the T20 League, one win can just change everything.
So let's get into some specifics now. I think Ryan Reckleton's innings really deserves a mention, right?
Oh, absolutely. Both CricBuzz and ESPN Cricinfo were full of praise for him.
And rightfully so, I think. He scored 62 runs off 41 balls.
That's right. And what impressed the CricBuzz commentators most was just the power he brought to the top of the order. They were actually saying that this was the first time they'd really seen a full innings from him.
Yeah, they even said he packs a punch, didn't they?
They did, yeah. I mean, he came out swinging from ball one, which obviously puts a ton of pressure on the bowlers.
And this is where it gets crazy. ESPN Cricinfo dug up this insane stat. Rickleton became only the 6th batter in IPL history to hit Sunil Narine for 3 sixes in one innings.
Wow, Narine is a world-class spinner, so that is seriously impressive.
Right, and they said the last person to do that was back in 2020. They also mentioned other big names who have achieved this feat, like Riddiman Saha, Hardik Pandya, and KL Rahul. That's an elite club to join, especially for an overseas player.
Definitely. And CricBuzz also highlighted Rickleton's comfort against spin bowling in general. They talked about him using what they called a subcontinental approach, staying low to the ball and really using his wrists effectively.
Which I guess makes sense, considering he plays a lot of his cricket on those slower turning pitches.
Exactly. And I think it also shows his adaptability, the ability to adjust his game to different conditions and bowlers.
CricBuzz actually included some post-match comments from Rickleton, too. He said he actually took his time at first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and admitted to feeling a bit lucky early on because the ball was doing a bit. He also made a funny comment about not being able to play Surya Kumaryadov's signature lap shot.
Good to see. He's got a sense of humor. But, going back to what we were saying about Mumbai's struggles in those first few games, Rickleton's innings seems to have addressed a major issue for them, that stability at the top of the order.
100%. Having someone who can score consistently right from the start really sets the tone for the whole innings.
No doubt about it.
Okay, and now for the fireworks, we got to talk about Surya Kumaryadov.
Oh, yeah, he really lit up his home crowd.
Came in and smashed 27 runs off just 9 balls. You just knew those sixes were coming.
Yeah, and the commentators couldn't stop raving about his swag and how quickly he picks up the line and length of the bowling.
They called it remarkable, didn't they?
They did, yeah. And what's interesting? CricBuzz brought up his famous pickup shot, that one where he scoops the ball over the covers for 6, and they said he actually practices that shot specifically.
Wow. So it's not just improvisation.
Apparently not. And get this, they even shared this anecdote about a hand surgeon who suggested that people from the subcontinent might have more malleable bones, which could potentially explain the kind of wrist work we see in players like Surya Kumar.
Now, that's a fascinating thought, right? Almost like there's a genetic advantage for certain types of shots.
Yeah, who knows if there's any truth to it, but it definitely makes you think.
Definitely. But joking aside, I think Krikbos was pretty spot on when they said Surya Kumar can win games on his own. His form is going to be crucial for Mumbai this season.
Absolutely. He's a match winner for sure.
Okay, so on the flip side, Rohit Sharma had a bit of a quiet game. Not a lot of runs from him, which I'm sure his fans were hoping for more.
Yeah, it wasn't his day this time around. Crickbuzz actually had an interesting take on his dismissal. They suggested he might be overthinking his approach right now, maybe even premeditating his shots while he's trying to find form.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you're struggling, you try to force it,
Exactly. But I think they're right when they say a player of his caliber will eventually come good. They even predicted that a big match-winning innings is just around the corner for him.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Me too, yeah.
And it's interesting. Despite Rohit not firing, Mumbai still won pretty convincingly.
That's a good sign, isn't it? Shows they're not overly reliant on one or two players.
Yeah, that depth in the batting lineup is going to be crucial as the tournament goes on.
Totally agree.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about Ashwani Kumar. Talk about a dream debut.
4 wickets on his first outing for Mumbai. Spectacular stuff.
Right. And Crickbuzz was calling him the coolest performer out there.
Yeah, he looked incredibly composed considering it was his debut, and especially in front of the home crowd in Mumbai. That can be a lot of pressure to handle.
Well, I can only imagine.
Right, but he just took it all in his stride.
Yeah, and Crickbuzz shared this kind of heartwarming story. Apparently, he was so nervous before the game that he only managed to eat a banana for lunch.
Oh, that's adorable.
Yeah, and he also gave a lot of credit to his captain, saying the advice to bowl into the stumps was a game changer. Plus, they mentioned his whole village back home was watching him play.
Oh, that's amazing. What a moment for him.
Definitely a debut he'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
But his performance actually raises an interesting question. What happens when Jasprit Bumrah is back?
Yeah, that's going to create a real selection headache for Mumbai.
Right. Crickbuzz was discussing this exact point. Some of them were saying a spinner might have to make way to accommodate both Bumrah and Kumar. Others were talking about the tactical advantage of having 2 left-arm seamers in the attack.
Interesting. So a lot to think about for the Mumbai selectors.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, though, right? Having too many good bowlers.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely better than the alternative.
Okay, now let's talk about KKR. And, well, it wasn't a great day at the office for them.
No, their batting just collapsed, and it ended up being a very one-sided affair.
Crickbuzz actually pointed out that this is now the 6th time KKR been bowled out for under 120 against Mumbai at the Wankhede Stadium.
So not a happy hunting ground for them, then.
Definitely not. They even went so far as to call Wankhede a bogey stadium and Mumbai a bogey team for KKR.
Yeah, that kind of history can definitely play on a team's mind.
No doubt, especially in a high-pressure environment like the IPL.
Exactly. But, even in this loss, Andre Russell did manage to pick up 2 wickets with the ball.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the general consensus is that they need him firing on all cylinders, with both bat and ball, if they want to be serious contenders.
Absolutely. He's a game changer when he's at his best.
And another key player for them, Venkatesh Iyer, also had a rough outing. No real runs from him despite having a decent record at Wankhede against Mumbai in the past. Crickbuzz actually suggested that the pressure of his price tag might be getting to him a bit.
That's always a possibility, that weight of expectation.
Yeah, it's not easy carrying that burden.
Not at all.
And actually, ESPN Cricinfo had a bigger point about KKR's batting approach as a whole. They pointed out that they've now had these middle-order collapses in back-to-back games, despite, on paper, having a pretty deep batting lineup.
Right, so the depth isn't really translating into consistent performances.
Exactly. And they even questioned whether this modern T20 trend of all-out attack might be hurting them when they lose early wickets.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if a more balanced approach might be needed at times.
Exactly. ESPN also brought up the role of a player like Ajinkya Rahane. Could he be the one to provide some stability to rebuild the innings after a couple of quick wickets?
It's an interesting idea, having someone who can anchor the innings while others play more freely around him.
Yeah, it might be worth exploring for KKR. And on that note, ESPN also touched upon the whole power play dynamic in T20 cricket. They basically reiterated the fact that the team who wins the power play often wins the match.
Yeah, that first 6 overs can really set the tone.
Absolutely, and while they acknowledged that, they also suggested that the impact sub-rule might be changing things slightly.
How so?
Well, now teams have that extra batting option later in the innings, so even if they lose a few early wickets, they still have the potential to recover.
Makes sense. So it adds another layer of tactical thinking.
Exactly, so it'll be interesting to see how teams adapt their strategies in the power play as the tournament goes on.
Yeah, it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
And just quickly, CricBuzz also gave us a sneak peek at the upcoming match between Lucknow and Punjab. Both teams have some serious firepower in their batting lineup, so that should be an exciting one.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. They also pointed out the Punjab has had a full week off, so they should be well rested. Plus, they mentioned the toss could be crucial, with chasing likely to be the preferred option because of the dew factor in the evening.
Right. Dew can make a big difference to the conditions.
Definitely something to keep in mind.
So to wrap things up for our listeners, we've really gone in depth on Mumbai's dominant victory over KKR.
We saw Rickleton's breakthrough performance, Surya Kumar's brilliance, and of course, Ashwani Kumar's dream debut. And for KKR, well, they've got some work to do, especially with their batting collapses.
Yeah, and their overall approach to the game seems to be a talking point as well.
And this actually leads us to a really interesting question for our listeners to consider as the tournament progresses. What is the right balance between that aggressive, all-out attack and the need for stability when the wickets start to fall?
It's a fascinating question.
Right. Do you sacrifice some early aggression for a more solid foundation? Or do you stick to your guns and back your power hitters to deliver even when the pressure is on?
It's a tricky one.
It is. And there's no easy answer. So as you watch the rest of the tournament, keep an eye on which teams manage to find that sweet spot between attack and stability.
Great point.
Yeah. And specifically for KKR, what kind of tactical changes might they need to make? And how will the return of Bumrah impact Mumbai's winning formula? There's a lot to ponder as this T20 season unfolds.
Thanks for breaking it all down. It's been a really insightful deep dive.
My pleasure. And thanks to all our listeners for tuning in.
See you next time.